Hello, listeners. Welcome to Inside TechCom with your host, Zohra Mutabana. In Season 4, I hope to bring to you different perspectives and interests that intersect with our field. Let's get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Inside TechCom with Zohra Mutabana. Today on my show, I have Kathleen Majorsky, who I have gotten to know in a very interesting way, but I'm so excited to have her here and listen to her story and her journey. And I promise you, this is one that you do not want to miss. With that, Kathleen, please introduce yourself to us.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today. A little bit about me. Historically, I've always been a writer, and I've just kind of plugged myself into very different kinds of writing over the course of my professional life. So marketing, content writing, copywriting, ad copy, social ad copy. And recently, within the last year, and this is how we connected, I wanted to get more into tech communication writing. So my interest in that, I feel, and what I'm good at is because of my background in journalism as well as in education. I used to be a high school English teacher and have a degree in education, a master's in education. I feel like I would be really good at the knowledge-based management kind of technical writing. So that's kind of my writing background. I've lived all over the country. I use a lot of the experiences I've had to write personal, like creative writing. So writing is just everywhere in my life. I write creatively, I write fiction, I write professionally. So that's what I love, and that's what I do, form or fashion, every day.
That's awesome. I've been doing writing in one area. You seem to have touched upon different genres, different styles of writing. So they're a breadth of skills. And I'm sure you would bring so much richness to any team you join, because the perspectives that you can bring to those teams would be amazing. So I'm kind of a little envious of you there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes. So Kathleen, I'm going to just dive right in. The way you and I met was, I believe, you reached out to me last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're all on this journey looking for our next opportunity, right? And what I loved about you was the fact that you reached out and we connected and we are here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I think for our writers who are starting this journey, or any professional that is starting this journey who may be nervous to reach out, I want them to hear from you. What was that like? What were your thoughts on reaching out to people on LinkedIn? How did you approach it? Just share a little bit about that.
So I've always been taught that to get anywhere in life, it's going to be through relationships. So I've spent time cold applying for things, and it grows in frustration. And so I've learned along the way that the best way to build a community, build a network, is to just have that human connection, whether, especially now it's even easier because we can do it virtually. And you can talk to someone all over the world. And it's not easy. I haven't always been the best at networking. It's a skill, 100%. And so it's taken a lot of courage, a lot of letting go of fear. Somebody saying, no, I don't have time. And you just kind of, if that happens, it's okay. Don't take it personally. They don't know you. They're probably just really busy, and that's okay. You could just go on to, someone else you feel like you want to connect with. And eventually someone will say yes. And, you just set up a chat. And there's usually, I try not to have any, I'll have a list of questions. I want to hear about someone's career journey, how they got into technical communication or what their writing life is like. But I try not to have any kind of agenda in any way, in terms of I want you to get me a job. That's never my intention. I just want to hear your story, learn about you, as in if I can glean anything from our conversation, awesome. That's great. But I also want to offer something to them as well. So I always ask if there's anyone in my own personal network I can introduce them to or connect them to, or anything they want or need that I could provide for them. It's always going to be a two-way street. Depending on the strength of the connection in that moment, I will follow up and keep in touch, much like with you. We kept in touch a little bit over the last year. whenever there was a milestone on LinkedIn that popped up for you, I would comment on it and check out your podcast and all of that. So it does take a little bit of work and a little bit of effort, but it's a building that community and building that network. It's that support. That's one of my core values as a human being on the planet. And I've really embraced that. And that's how I've conducted my professional life, especially within the last year or so on LinkedIn.
Kathleen, beautifully said. I agree with everything that you've said. LinkedIn is such a great platform for that, for us to reach out. We have that community and everything you're building. You use these words about building a community. It's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. And what can you bring to the table? And genuinely showing interest in the person that you're reaching out to. Those are the things I think help you grow your tribe. So my fellow listeners, if you're listening to this part of, even if you don't listen to the whole episode, I would recommend you do. But if there is one thing that you can take away is building your support, building your network, you have to invest in it. It's an investment. So please definitely take this advice not with a grain of salt, but as a nugget that will come to your help in the long run. So moving on, Kathleen, I have been following your posts just like you've been following mine. And LinkedIn is busy, right? We are following so many people, but then there are some that stand out. And we are all doing posts. And I hope that somebody follows me or comments on my post. But what you did with LinkedIn, I think, is something very, very unique. You started following, of course, this whole theme is about artificial intelligence, AI. And with that being the case, your post started catching my attention because you started talking about AI. In the beginning, I was like, okay, she's going to start looking at tools. But then you started following up on that and just building this narrative that was hard for me to let go. I'm like, oh, I have to check. You kind of had this hook going for me and I'm hooked. So that's very rare. Even I don't do that, right? You have figured to gain that following. It doesn't have to be a big following. That's not the point. The point is that you're doing something unique in this space. So let's start talking about that. What is it that you're doing with your posts and
Absolutely.
How they came to be?
Back in January, so I've felt resistant to all of the AI hoopla as a writer, as someone who's been a lifelong writer. And I just kind of realized that AI is here to stay. It's going to keep getting more intense and better, and the technology is going to get better. So it came across this AI for Writers Summit put on by the Marketing AI Institute. And this was at the end of March. And I said, all right, it's time. It's time to see what all this AI stuff is about and how I can incorporate it and not be afraid of it because it's here. It's happening. And I don't want to be left behind. So I attended the summit. It was a virtual summit. It was about 4 hours in an afternoon. And one of the presentations that was given was about all of these AI tools. And how it started was, so I summarized my feelings and thoughts about what I witnessed in this summit. So that was kind of the first week. That was how it started. And then as I kept going and I said, this isn't going anywhere. And I'm feeling very kind of like a baby calf just being born. Like I felt like I was unstable and wobbly. And I thought to myself, the majority of my connections on LinkedIn are all writers too. We probably all have the same fears, the same kind of insecurities about, is AI going to take my job away? And so I really wanted to position myself as a beginner because historically, and as I get older, that's harder for me to be a beginner. I mean, I'm curious and a lifelong learner, but to be a beginner is to be vulnerable, especially, as you advance in your career and become an expert, that's hard. So I said, that's a fear of mine. So I'm going to tackle a couple of fears by doing this. And I wanted some structure to it. I'm a big person on structure and it just didn't feel right to just like randomly different posting times, different things every different day. So I created a structure around it and I was honest with how it started. So when I found out what kind of structure I wanted it to be, I created a post about that. I said, all right, on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I'm going to post a different video about a different tool. And you can watch it. I made it a little bit longer. No less. I try to keep it about 30 minutes because that's a long time to view a video. But I think a lot of the content in there is important to kind of go in there and watch me in real time be a beginner at all of these different tools. And sometimes I hope it's a little funny. I don't try to be funny, but sometimes like my initial reactions I think are really funny in how I'm going about these tools. So that's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Then Thursday, I do a little wrap up post of the 3 tools that I just did. And then Friday, I really think it's important to, it's fun to be excited about all of this. It's here and it's happening, but we can't talk about being excited about it without considering risk and safety issues and thinking about ethics around AI and what happens if this falls into dangerous hands. So on Fridays, and they don't get as much play as my other posts, but that's okay. I'm still going to continue to do it. Maybe it's because it's a Friday. I don't know. But I write about some kind of AI risk and safety issue because that's important to me. I don't want to come across as a AI Pollyanna and not address those kinds of things as well. And so it just kind of morphed from there. And how I chose the tools that I'm looking at. One of the presentations gave a list of about 17 tools that this person he's one of the officers, the employees at the Marketing AI Institute felt were worth checking out as writers. And so that's where I got the list of tools that I've been checking out. And I've saved a couple of posts by people I trust in this space who included a couple of more. So I've added those to the list, and I have a number in my head as to when I'm probably going to stop. And my goal is the last one is going to be ChatGPT. I haven't addressed that for a couple of reasons. I think it's one of the more powerful tools. It gets a lot of play in the press. A lot of people are talking about it. Obviously, they're the biggest player in the space, in my opinion, so far. And I really enjoy promoting some smaller entrepreneurs who are really trying to get into the space. And so that's why I'm doing these smaller, more niche tools right now. But I will address ChatGPT.
Awesome. Before I forget, what summit is this that you were talking about?
It was called the AI for Writers Summit. And again, the organization is called the Marketing AI Institute. It's based out of Cleveland. There's a woman, her name is Anne Hanley, the chief content officer for an organization called Marketing Profs. And so she's super popular in the marketing world. She speaks on marketing and writing. She has 2 books about writing out in the world. I subscribe to her newsletter, and she was actually one of the speakers in the summit. And so I read her newsletter faithfully. It comes out every 2 weeks. And she had a section of her newsletter was talking about her speaking at this summit. And she's been making some commentary about AI in her newsletter as we've gone on. And so I just clicked on the link, and I saw it was free and virtual, and it just felt like the universe was sending this to me on purpose.
That's awesome, because I have not heard about them, but probably because I'm not in the marketing writing space, but I'm definitely going to check it out. So thanks for bringing us this great resource. This is how I learn.
Yeah,
as much as I've been in this journey for a long time, I'm always open to learning. As you were sharing your journey, Kathleen, I was like, you're doing so many things, I guess, in my opinion, the right way. You are being vulnerable. It's not easy to be vulnerable online. You are positioning yourself as a beginner, but you're bringing you're putting your structure around it. So it's telling a story about you to me. You are tackling your fears head on as well.
100%.
And you're pivoting, right? So you've done all these different things. You've identified that you want to break into a different part or sort of, you want to break into a different field, or rather within writing, a different type of writing. You're making yourself accountable by, hey, I'm going to be doing this tomorrow. So that is your hook. That's how I'm hooked to your posts. I'm looking forward to what is coming next. And honestly, I love your humor. I have seen some of your videos, not all of your videos, but anytime I watch your video, I have because it's so unscripted when you are walking us through, right? And what I like about the fact is that you just take it in your stride and you're just talking organically about what you're thinking, speaking aloud. I'm thinking of so many things. You bring so many skills. You're demonstrating so many skills here by doing these little things. I know that, you are looking for a great opportunity to, to step into this amazing next chapter of your life. And with everything that you are doing online, trust me, it is your power. Own it and do it. You're going to my heart tells me that you're going to find something so amazing. And I hope it happens
Thank
for you.
you.
I hope we can manifest that together, right? The thing about
I think
Fridays,
we can.
yes. So for the Friday thing, I follow that more closely, by the way. Your posts about risk and safety and the ethical, the impact of AI. And we are going to talk about that because I think that is a very critical part of the conversation that each one of us owes it to ourselves and to our future selves and for the next generation as we kind of discover what AI means to us, to each of us, and how can we not just keep our jobs, but, move forward responsibly, right? All of that, whatever you're doing is all great stuff. And the reason I bring that up is because there are a lot of writers, be from any field, who are looking for their next break. And everything that you shared, being vulnerable, trying to network, trying to reach out, trying to do things a different way. You're owning your own story and not being afraid of it. This is what somebody who's been in this field for a long time. I'm not a manager, but when I do sit in on any hiring decisions, wherever I've been, these are the things, the qualities that I look for in the younger generation that's entering the field. And I think this applies to any profession, not just writers. So any beginner that is out there trying to figure out, hey, what do I do? What can I do differently? Kathleen, I think you're doing an amazing job with that. So congratulations. It's not easy. And I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you do because I'm learning and I'm sure so many others are learning. Now, let's move on to the next question. We talk about learning here. I know that the employees of these tools that you are researching are reaching out to you because they are learning from your journey. Let's talk about that.
Sure. It's been fun to engage with the folks who work at these the companies that are producing these tools. And I want to make sure, and these people aren't paying me. I'm doing this of my own volition, and they, I'm not getting any kickbacks or anything like that. It's just, I post these things, I tag them in these posts because I want them to see them, obviously.
Excellent.
Because essentially what I'm doing user testing for them, right?
Exactly.
Free.
Yes.
I'm doing some user testing, and I think, if you're a good quality company, you're going to listen to the user 100%. You have to, otherwise people aren't going to pay $1.99 a month for your service, right? You need to listen to the user. So I'm providing the service for them. And so, so there've been a really interesting engagements with these folks. Like one of the CEO and founder of one of the tools reached out because I didn't have some complimentary things to say about that particular tool. He kind of pushed back a little and said, hey, we're going to give you a VIP subscription for the next month if you want to get in there and really take a deeper dive. And so I thought that was really interesting. I had the VP of marketing of one of the tools reach out and said, hey, we want to, is it okay if we use your content to demonstrate what users can do as a use case? And got followed by one of the CEOs and founders of another tool I highlighted last week. And so it's just been really interesting how the people who work the people who are producing these tools are reaching out and engaging in my content.
So looks like some good stuff has come out of this experience. And if I may say so, maybe you have a career in user testing, probably user research, right?
Absolutely,
because you seem to be you seem to be just, hitting the ball out of the, out of the park?
The park?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Thank you. It's a hard job. It's not easy doing that. You have to, it's a certain mindset. As you are doing this organically, unscripted, you're finding some good and bad. And if the big shots are reaching out to you, they're invested in what you're saying. And it's a very smart thing that you are tagging them. I would have not thought of that. That is also being kind of fearless a little bit. That's amazing. Hats off to you on that.
Why not?
Yep, absolutely. Why not? That's a good question. Why not?
I don't have anything to lose here. So it's not like I said, I don't have any monetary value in this game. It's just, I feel like, part of it is about it's about my community of writers. Like the majority of the people on LinkedIn I'm connected to are writers. And my hope is my vulnerability in this journey, they can see that and say, all right, maybe AI isn't as scary. Maybe AI is more palatable than I thought. Maybe it can help me be a better writer and not, replace me at my job. You know what I mean? So I was just going to say that's my main motivation. And so I'm being authentic in everything that's happening on LinkedIn, right? And people can tell, whether you're the creator of the tool or a fellow writer who has the same fears I do about AI. So,
yeah. So, segueing into my follow-up question here, you talk about how AI is here to stay and we better embrace it. You've tested quite a few tools. What does it look like to you? Is it going to replace us? What are your thoughts? Give us some insight into that.
Sure. So I did a little count before we got on, and I've so far I've tested about 10 tools.
Okay.
And I think personally, at least immediately, I think we're safe
Okay.
as writers. I don't think AI is going to replace us, just because as I've been going through these tools, and if you watch any of my videos, I think there's always kind of a hint of skepticism. Like, am I reacting to the cool features on some of these tools? Absolutely. But I'm also thinking, this isn't how I would do it as a writer, or this isn't the word choice I would do. And I think as writers, we know that a lot, depending on which piece of the pie you call your writing career, writing is subjective. And so an AI tool can spit out something to get you started, but really deep down you're like, I can do, like, it's not 100% perfect. It's not always the best, in my opinion. Like, if you watch some of my videos, you can see I'm like, I don't think I would say it that way. I don't necessarily agree with what they're saying here, or the information is wrong. So I think there's very much a human element that still needs to be applied. I think AI can definitely make some of the kind of more mundane tasks that we as writers we take on easier, and we can get them done quicker to get to the kind of the higher level critical creative thinking. And as when I get into ChatGPT, maybe some of that is with that tool in particular will start doing that. But there's still, like, if you think about it, the training of the large language models is being like data. There's bias in data, and I spoke about bias and objectivity in my Friday post this week, and you have to account for that. There's human bias, there's going to be AI bias. And so we have to figure that out together. And I don't think we'll ever reach kind of a perfection with AI, because the people, like, it's data is biased. Humans are biased who are like inputting the data. And so it's like the snowball effect, and you're never going to reach 100% perfection. So I think there's definitely room for both. Us and them.
Us and them. Yes. It cannot be us versus them. It has to be us and them together.
Absolutely. 100%.
I remember, so I follow most of your posts, and one of the videos that I watched, which stayed with me, was you were just going through this tool and you wrote something, and then it gave a readability score of 90 for you, 90 or 92. And then you gave these bullets for the AI to generate its own content, and it gave its own self some 80 or something. And that, I think, caught you by surprise, right?
Well, it did, because in the suggestions that it gave my writing, it wasn't taking, the AI didn't improve and take the suggestions it itself gave me as a writer. So I was like, wait a minute.
That was very smart of you to catch that. That's why I say, right, user research, user testing, you did an amazing job with that. And I wouldn't have thought about it either. We trust AI. I've been using ChatGPT extensively for a lot of things, but I have not used the tool that you were testing. And when it gave its own script or whatever it spit out, a readability score of 80, the fact that it's not applying its own rules to its own content, that kind of made me pause a little bit. And like, it's interesting that we are scared of AI, but as we start using it, we fall more and more in love with it. I'm speaking for myself here. But then there is this other side, the dark side, where it's not testing its own rules. It's not following its own rules, probably, right? We haven't thought about it. And bias, of course, bias, objectivity, all these things it's learning from the data that we feed to it, right? It's not at that point where it can create its own content. It is feeding off of what is being fed to it. and be it any tool. So to be mindful of that fact is very, very important. So that was something that I walked away with something to be mindful of. So thank you for that, actually.
For sure. And the technology could advance to a point where it is creating its own content. But just as we create our own content, we still need to be fact checked. We still need to be edited. So does you can't completely 100% accept whatever it's giving you. Well, just like people don't accept 100% what we produce, right? So you got to keep that in mind. Just because it's a machine doesn't mean it's always accurate, always correct. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's very good advice for all of us that are going to use more and more of this tool. So Kathleen, we've touched upon a lot of good questions here. All this research that you're doing, how has that informed your career so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So engaging with AI kind of was a fear of mine. And so this journey for me has kind of alleviated some of those fears that I'm going to be replaced. And whenever you can counter your fears and face them head on, you make them smaller. They shrink up and they don't seem as bad as you thought. And so that's how I've kind of come out on the other side of this AI journey. And I'm just like, AI, it's okay. We're going to be okay. Also, I think when you apply for something, for a job, or you list your skills or credentials on LinkedIn, and it's kind of difficult to really bring to life the skills that you talk about in a resume or on LinkedIn because people are reading those things. And for me, a lot of this journey demonstrates my creative critical thinking in these videos, my flexibility, my curiosity, my lifelong learning interests. I'm bringing those things to life. Like I can list those things on a resume or in my LinkedIn profile, but this is the first time I've been able to really bring those things to life and have a moment. I mean, I've demonstrated those in professional situations before, but this is happening in real time. And I can point to these things and say, this is just a different way I've applied those things that are listed on my resume. So and it validates for me that this journey is a positive thing, that I'm doing a good thing for not only for my fellow writers on LinkedIn, but I'm demonstrating these things instead of I'm showing, not telling, right?
Yes. And I think this also probably becomes part of your portfolio that you can point to, like you said. It demonstrates in real time your curiosity and thinking out of the box as you go, because that is something we have to do in our day-to-day where we are thinking on our feet many a times. There is no script. And to be vulnerable, to be authentic, we talk about these things, but it's a show and tell in real time, which is, I think, in my opinion, it's fantastic to do that. It's a great thing. You are also helping writers like me who have been on this journey for such a long time to learn, to see how youngsters are thinking about it and what can we do together rather than in my own silo. Because the more we converse about it, the more we become smart, right? We learn from each other. We lean in on each other. And that's important because that is the human element that AI cannot do, right?
Right.
And together 100%. We are stronger. Hopefully, right?
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. I mean, genuinely, I'm scared too that I could be replaced, right? So when we do these conversations, we learn from each other. We just broaden our thinking. And to me...
Well, and so writing in and of itself is a solitary act. You leave a meeting about what you're supposed to do for the week and you're essentially on your own island. Even if you're in an office, it doesn't matter if you're working from home, remotely, in an office, it's a solitary act. And so by doing this and creating a community around writing, again, it reinforces what you just said. We're in this together. We're not alone. We don't have to be on these islands of us like sitting in our desks writing. And I know a lot of us love that. And I know I speak for myself when I say I'm an introvert to the core. And that's why I love to write, because it does alleviate I have to constantly be on in front of folks. But just realizing and not forgetting that we're all in this together and that we can support each other in this journey is just, I think for me, is huge.
Yeah. And I've been a technical writer for a long time, almost coming up on 2 decades. I'm dating myself here, but that's fine. What I have realized in my career is that we may think that we write alone, that we go off and write, but the field itself has evolved. And especially the more UX writing that I do, I lean in. I cannot do this alone. I have to engage with other writers. The frequency is far more than it used to be when I was writing long form writing. It's that it has evolved. So if anybody thinks that you're going to be writing off on your own as an introvert, I highly recommend that it's okay to be introverted and still be able to talk to people. You don't have to,
Oh, yeah.
right? And not to feel scared. I believe I'm probably ambivert. My kids tell me I'm not at all introverted. But I think I know myself a little bit to say that I am an introvert, but maybe not. Maybe I'm an ambivert. But with that mindset, it is the field has evolved a lot. And if we think that we can continue to be in our silos and still do things the way we did, even before the pandemic or pre-AI, it's the field is evolving and we better move with it if we want to have secure careers, secure futures, and be here in the long run and not get outdated,
100%.
right? Yeah. So I think that's a good point that you bring. It helps us to engage with each other and find out what are we thinking and how we can help each other.
100%.
Right. Risk and safety, your Friday posts. I want to talk a little bit about that. What have you found so far? What has your research told you so far?
Historically, because of my journalism and critical media literacy background, I'm very cautious about the sources, or not cautious, but aware of where I'm getting that information from. Because the internet is what it is, right? And so there's lots of misinformation, lots of bias out there, a lot of doomsayer in the AI space. And I don't necessarily want to support 100% those folks, just like I don't want to be this AI Pollyanna. I'm kind of trying to find a middle ground. And so I gravitate toward resources that are academic in nature, are peer reviewed, or being created and provided by government agencies that have the power to create ethical guardrails around AI. And my hope is in sharing these resources. And they're not, like I said in one of my posts, they're not sexy resources. It's dry. It's a little boring to read, but I think it's super important that we consider all of these ethical risks and safety issues. Not only, the AI system creators, but also the businesses who want to be AI forward. And, you need to have, companies need to start having AI task force within their organizations to really have dedicated people who are thinking about this and what it looks like as an organization and how it fits into your policies and procedures and how you can be transparent with your clients and your customers about how you're using it. And so I think it's going to it worries me because there's the speed effect, right? So AI technology and how it's being produced and advanced is happening so quickly. And the folks that are technically and historically responsible for creating guardrails and policies around such things are usually the academic folks and the government. And those entities are usually really slow to kind of catch up and get into it. So there's this kind of imbalance with those two things. And that's my concern here. So as it continues to speed up, I think we just need to collectively help each other keep asking those hard questions about the ethics and the, what if this happened? What if this stuff, and I'm sure it's already happening out there. It's getting into dangerous hands. So what do we do with that? What happens? How can we protect each other? How can we protect humanity, our businesses, our personal lives, society at large, so we don't get harmed by it? Any kind of piece of technology that helps humanity in a good way, it's a new level, a new devil, right? So This is super cool, but you have to contend with the new devil at this level. And so we need to also be thinking about that as personally, professionally, and society at large.
You bring a lot of maturity to this discussion, which is absolutely needed at this time. And the things that you mentioned, task force, policy and procedures, being transparent, Some companies are doing that. I know that Microsoft is using AI to generate content, and I was on the Microsoft website, and there was transparency on there, which I really liked because it said something along the lines of AI. The content was generated by AI, but verified by humans, something along those lines. That transparency helped me know that, okay, this company is using AI, but then how is it being used and what is happening behind the scenes with this content? It's not just being spit out at me. But the guardrails, the resources that you're looking at to do your research, it's cut and dry. I mean, it is going to be dry. Absolutely. And the interesting thing that you talk about, that the progress and the research is not in sync, right? In terms of the ethical research, AI has sort of, it's this bullet train, and then academic research, which is kind of at a snail space, we may never catch up to it. So I'm thinking about all these big names in the industry, Elon Musk and everybody talking about, hey, let's take a pause for 6 months so that we can catch up to what do we want our AI future to look like. I think with what you're bringing to the table, that may be needed.
Absolutely. I think so. I think, especially in this moment, it hasn't gotten to a point yet where it's more bad than good in terms of how it's impacting society. This is the moment where we need to pause. We still can decide how our future looks like in terms of AI. I think it's important to take a moment here, like especially right now, because no one really understood when social media came out the kind of unintended consequences. And there's research that has been done about how it's impacted mental health and all of that, and we still don't know how AI is going to impact people and society in the long term. I was thinking about it. Usually laws and rules come up because something disastrous happens, something awful happens, and so they're forced to create rules and laws about this. I don't think we should let that happen here. Like, I don't want to see some kind of awful, disastrous thing happen as a result of using AI or incorporating AI in our society and culture. So this is that moment. This is the moment we can still decide what it looks like, how we want to use it, how we want it to show up in our world. I mean, I don't have that power to be like, hey, everybody, let's pause. That's my opinion. That's, just kind of how the sense I'm getting in terms of like, let's learn from history for once. Like, let's look at how things evolved in the, when social media first came onto the scene and how it's impacted, whether the people who are using it, like teenagers and young children, how they've been impacted, whether or not they realize they're being impacted. I think we can kind of look back enough now to see how it has been affected folks in our culture, in our world. So I don't want to get to that point with AI. Like, let's pause right now and kind of figure out how we want to proceed in terms of ethics, risk, and safety, and how we want it to impact and infiltrate our lives.
Absolutely. It's a scary thought to think that we wait for something disastrous to happen before we act. This is a great moment. And there are organizations trying to do that, or I would say, whatever little bit I've read. I mean, private organizations trying to ask for that moment. People are realizing that even those whose jobs are not going to be replaced are talking about, hey, let's take a pause here and let's be responsible with how we proceed. And I think we should be leaning in and coming together to figure out what that means. We don't know what that means. And like, even if you say that I don't have the power, I think you do have the power by what you're doing on LinkedIn, right? By talking about it, by bringing these fears up. Somebody somewhere is listening, and we cannot be quiet about it. What our impact is going to be, we don't know, but we cannot wait for that. We still have to voice our concern. So this is awesome that you're taking this initiative to do what you do and talk about these things. I did want to request you to talk a little bit about what did you mean by Pollyanna, because I think you use that in the context of you're not a Pollyanna, right? For my folks who are listening from all these interesting countries that may not know what it means, can you just clarify what that means?
So in this context, that kind of idiom term, Pollyanna, means being super positive, kind of pie in the sky, super excited about something and not considering the other side of things. So just being, like always celebrating AI, not pushing forward with it, promoting it without thinking about, well, this could be harmful. There's the doomsayers out there who are like, this is going to destroy us as human beings. And then there are the people who are just super excited. And those are the Pollyannas who aren't thinking about the other side. I don't want to be on either side. I want to consider both and kind of come to my own conclusions.
See, I learned something. I'm good. This is my vulnerable moment. I had a fair idea. I didn't know. So thank you. I learned something new today on my own show. I always do, actually. I always learn more than I'm asking for. I just have to make space to remember all this stuff. We have touched upon some amazing pressing questions, in my opinion. Is there anything that you feel we may have left out and you want to add?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff today. I think maybe some advice or some coaching to those folks who want to create content or want to start learning how to network. I would say just dive in. Don't be afraid to look foolish, especially if the end result is going to help other people or open you up to opportunities. And that's kind of what I've learned through all of this. I think one of the fears also, along with being a beginner for me, was looking foolish, caring what other people think about this content that I'm producing. And because I feel like I'm helping folks, I had to let that go. I had to let my ego kind of go with all of it and just kind of dive in and be as it may. This is how I'm presenting myself in this moment. So
that's awesome.
One of the cool things about this also, in addition to the creator of these tools that I have reached out, a lot of my writing connections, a couple of them have reached out and are really interested in my perspective and what I've been doing. And so there are 3 other content creators that we've gathered to, we're going to start creating a AI focused, technology focused e-zine that the first issue is supposed to be out sometime in June. And we've never met in person. We only kind of connected on LinkedIn, and we're dividing and conquering. It's for women, and we're talking about technology and how we've come to it, AI, how we're integrating it into we're all writers. And so it's going to be really cool. We're going to do some cool things with it. We all are coming at it from different perspectives. One's a content marketer, one gal is a journalist, and one gal she works in UX. She's a UX researcher. So we're all kind of have our own spins and slices on what's happening. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome.
And this is an opportunity, right? And so had I not shared all that I am sharing, those folks, I would never know. So it's all very exciting, and just kind of engaging in new opportunities as a result of all of this is really fun.
Congratulations. That's a big achievement to come together to build something new. That's awesome. That speaks to your strengths. So I'm looking forward to it. When you're ready to go live with it, definitely please let me know, and I will share it with my audience. I want all of us to participate in this discussion, and what you're doing is a leg up. And you talked about, hey, I don't have the influence. I think you do have some sort of influence here as you start to create this. You're expressing yourself through a newsletter and with more people. That itself shows how you are starting to influence this discussion. Yay to you, Kathleen. This has been an amazing, amazing conversation. I've had so much fun, honestly, talking to you and learning from what you do and where you're headed. I wish you all the very best, Kathleen. You're going to go places. I know that. You're doing awesome already. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is really fun. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app, such as Google, Apple, or Spotify. For the latest on my show, follow me on LinkedIn or visit me at www.insidetechcom.show. Catch you on another episode.